Increasing the so-called sugar tax would have a negative impact on people's jobs. This is the view of the SA Canegrowers Association. The Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwane, has announced plans to increase the health promotion levy. But the association is warning of devastating implications for rural communities. For more on this, we are joined by the CEO of the SA Canegrowers Association, Dr. Thomas Funke. A very good morning to you, Doctor. Good to have you with us this morning. Now, there has been a study that was actually conducted by NEDLAC that looked at the impact that the sugar tax has actually had on the industry. Won't you summarize that for us? What are the changes that you've seen in the industry directly because of the sugar tax?
Yes, good morning. The sugar tax, when it was implemented in 2018, had a massive impact on the industry. Across the board, and especially in the cane growing areas, we saw a large number of jobs shed because of that. It was essentially an affordability issue. It was unaffordable for the farmers to continue with the number of staff that they had employed on their farms because income was just cut so dramatically. So the HPL obviously had the effect that beverage companies bought less sugar. They reformulated into non-nutritive sweeteners, and that meant that we had to export the sugar at a loss. So yeah, in the cane growing sector alone, over 9,000 jobs were lost. And this is rural areas in KZN and Mpumalanga.
So which items are actually included in the sugar tax? And do they look at natural sugar content? Is it added sugar, sweeteners?
Yeah, at this stage, it's really just the soft drinks and anything else that contains sugar that has the tax on it. So that would be added sugar. Fruit juices are still exempt at this point in time, as are, I think, milk-based products like little milkshakes and things like that. But the fact is that, less sugar gets used, obviously, and that affects our livelihoods and those of our farm workers and our farmers out there in the rural areas.
The minister did say, this was in February of 2023, earlier on this year, that he was going to give a 2-year break before implementing any hikes in the sugar price and the sugar tax. Have there been any sort of consultations between February and when the tax is supposed to actually be increased?
Yeah, that's a very good question. We're still waiting for those consultations. We have reached out to the various government departments to try and enact those. The Portfolio Committee of Department Trade of Industry and Competition had also attempted to hold a colloquium to try and see what diversification opportunities exist. I think there was a lot of talk around ethanol and the potential of that, but that also hasn't happened yet, so we wait for that. In the meantime, the sugar industry has embarked on a massive diversification study campaign. We're looking at sustainable aviation fuels as an alternative, as well as bioplastics. So hopefully that will come to something. But at the end of the day, I guess we are extremely grateful for this reprieve to give us some time to try and get somewhere. But I think the reality is that these studies alone take about 2 years to conduct. And then if they are positive and you can actually go ahead with one of those projects, we'll need another 3 years probably to get that project off the ground. So it's, the 2 years is a good start, but hopefully we can get some more time just to diversify the sector.
The tax hike is currently scheduled to resume and be implemented from April of 2025. Should there not be any sort of meeting of minds between the Cane Growers Association, the industry, as well as Treasury and the Finance Minister regarding this? What are the likely implications and ramifications of the hike in the sugar tax on the industry?
We've done some studies on that and some forward modeling with the Bureau for Food and Agricultural Policy, and indications are that up to another 150,000 tons of sugar will be taken out of the market, so to say, as beverage companies and others would diversify and look for alternative sweeteners. And that would mean that that sugar would have to be exported at a loss. And again, back in 2018, we lost 250,000 tons of supply into the local market overnight. So I would imagine another 5,000-6,000 jobs on the line in the cane growing sector alone. And if you look at the NEDLAC report, it would probably, economy-wide be about 10,000-11,000 jobs that would be on the line. So massive impact again if reformulation happens and the tax is increased.
And how would this impact then trickle down to the consumer, those who are actually purchasing goods that are filled with sugar or contain sugar?
Yeah, and it is a mechanism where the producers of the product cut out their sugar, so to say, out of their ingredients and put in artificial sweeteners, all of which we don't know what the health impacts of those are either. And that would mean that the consumer on the ground is either faced with paying a higher price for his product. We've seen one of the beverage companies not reformulate the original recipe. That means that the tax is lobbed onto that product and the consumer pays a higher price. Or alternatively, they try and escape the tax. So by getting under the threshold of sugar contained in that product, they then don't pay the tax. And in that way, they can discount that product relative to the product containing sugar. So I think either way, the consumer has an impact, either pays a higher price or gets a product that he's probably not familiar with and needs to get used to the alternative taste. But for us, the impact is still on the jobs.
I find this quite ironic. This is the health promotion levy. If you remove natural sugars and you remove, cane sugar, for example, from foodstuff, but then you introduce artificial sweeteners, have there been adequate studies on what the impact on health and consumers' health is actually going to be?
Yeah, we're not experts in health, but we do follow the WHO, and they recently released a study where they actually highlighted that some of the artificial sweeteners might be cancer-causing if obviously consumed in certain ways. So we have concerns around that. We are also very in contact with the market and the people who actually produce these products. And sometimes, it's up to them to try and source these items, these artificial sweeteners from China. And that in itself, I think, is a concern. They're not produced locally. So again, we've got foreign currency going out of the country and destroying jobs. And that's a real concern to us also.